IR Today, brought to you by the National Investor Relations Institute, dedicated to advancing global investor relations practices, and Knowledge Partner host, Corporate Board Member.
Welcome to NIRI's IR Today. I'm Jeff Morgan, President and CEO of the National Investor Relations Institute, and we are coming to you today remote from Seattle, Washington, where NIRI is holding their annual conference. We're very excited by this. Our annual conference has over 1,300 attendees, 20 countries are represented, huge amount of exhibitors are here, and lots of educational programs. So we are very excited today to have joining us Ruth Cotter, who is Corporate Vice President of Investor Relations for AMD, Advanced Micro Devices.
That's
so
right.
Glad you're with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here, Jeff, today at this fantastic conference. The attendance is just super. This morning's sessions were really exciting and actually very energizing. So I'm excited about what's to come as we traverse through the next 3 days.
Fantastic. Well, you were on a session yesterday on global investor relations, and it's something that in our looking out in the future, NIRI is really feeling that global investor relations is something that is absolutely critical. And when we look at the practices of IR, we're going to put a lot more time into our standards of practice and really looking at what are the rules for IR and how do you implement those. And it's my belief, and I think many of us believe, that over time investors are going to be demanding sort of a set of practices regardless of where you are around the world. And you sort of epitomize that global investor relations professional because you are not originally from the United States, you were from Ireland, but now you're in the US. So tell us a little bit about your career, how you got started, and how you ended up going from Ireland and IR to the United States.
So it's been a very interesting journey, obviously. Many, many years ago, I started investor relations in Ireland. I really was attracted to the communications element balancing with the finance element. I just thought it was a career that was very exciting. So as I started through my career, the challenge was I worked in a country of 4 million people where 4 to 5 people in the whole country practiced investor relations. So it was without doubt, best practice was established in the US. And how could I get to the US to really learn and grow in terms of what the profession was and how it was being defined? It was also at a time where within the European Union, the countries were only beginning to open their borders, even though there was this longer-term strategic vision of just one country. But it was only at the very beginning of that. Likewise, Canada's borders to the US in terms of investments was very closed. So as those journeys created broader, more global opportunities for investment pools, my career grew. And then I transitioned to look for a role that would take me to the United States, where is the center of the universe in terms of investor relations at that time. And I moved my career to work for an Irish company that was co-headquartered in Ireland and the United States. And I worked there for several years and then eventually established myself in Advanced Micro Devices 10 years ago. So during that time, though, it's been fascinating to watch how borders have lifted and how we've become very less country-centric. And that's something at Advanced Micro Devices we really try to do as part of our investor relations program, is not to be so geographically specific and to look at it more in broader bands of continents if we have to, but also who are the funds and where are they of size that we want to go after, regardless of where they may be based. And that's really what was really interesting yesterday. We had an Asia Pacific panel, which was great, and then we had the Global IR panel. And I think that's really one of the key things that came out of it was look at yourself as an organization, look at your competitive set, look at your product set, and no longer are we considering ourselves as corporates as, okay, where is our Singapore office versus where is our Bangladesh office? And it's like we are a global entity, and how do we move forward, likewise being reflected in the profession.
Do you want to share a couple nuggets on how you go about global IR, since I know you're a mid-cap company and you have not a lot of resources, so how do you move forward with establishing a global IR program?
It's a challenge. We're obviously challenged by budgetary constraints. We're a mid-cap company, so we have to be very careful where we invest our dollars and where will we get the most return. We have a nice sized of an international base in our shareholder base that we continue to cultivate. We have a very large shareholder from Abu Dhabi as an example, large shareholder in Norway, in Australia, that really grow within our base, and we feel good about that. But to engage with them, you have to be smart about how you approach that. We're, believe it or not, only in Europe once a year. You would imagine we would be there more. But we're privileged because we work in Silicon Valley, so we have a lot of roadshows that come our way from international funds. We also encourage our sell-siders and the banks that we engage with to bring roadshows around certain events. We also club with local companies who would be hosting different analyst days and things like that to ensure that we're reaching out to the international base. We're very discerning for investment conferences, who we meet. Even at US investment conferences, there's a large international presence at those. And then for things like the different funds that have international arms, we're thoughtful about the times we organize those meetings at to try to encourage their London office or their Hong Kong office to be able to dial into the meeting or attend through video conferencing. And we also invite folks and advise them of those meetings. And then we also have a HP Halo 3D video conferencing facility at AMD. It's very similar to Cisco's telepresence. And there's many telepresence systems all over the world. And I think that's something that we as IROs need to get more comfortable with. It's not your traditional video conferencing opportunity, and it's global and it's instant. And I think where that can take us in time is very exciting.
Good. Well, I want to ask you a couple situational questions.
Sure.
The first is, many in IR look to grow in their career, and Treasury is a spot that IR can grow. And you're unique because you ran Treasury and then you gave it up. So why is that?
Well, it was a great opportunity. It landed in my lap by accident. There was some change within the organization, and I was encouraged to step up and seize the opportunity. I did. At the time I took it on board, AMD had almost $5 billion of debt, so it was a crazy time to become part of Treasury. It was a fantastic opportunity. It actually really helped me with the executive management team internally in terms of profiling my career and taking it to the next level because of the exposure I had, especially with the board of directors. Phenomenal learning curve there. But also with investors, they really liked it that I had that other balance because the balance sheet was such a critical issue for us during the years I was there. So I would encourage anyone tuning into this to really embrace these opportunities, even if you're a little afraid, which I have to admit I was at the time, but it was great. The challenge though for me, and I'm kind of black and white, so the challenge for me was I really enjoy and feel very comfortable being an investor relations officer by not having the complete insight into all the corporate strategic decisions that are being made. That's not to say I feel like I don't have a voice at the table or good representation at the executive level. I believe I do. But I always am more comfortable talking to our investor base when I don't know what the definitive decisions are in some critical things, like are we actually going to acquire company X, or are we really going to go out to the market and do a $1.5 billion debt transaction? Yep. And being in Treasury, I had the complete picture. It was the last sort of nugget that I just felt it was difficult at a time when our balance sheet was so critical to investors, that you had a corporate message, and at the same time I knew that we were lining up these massive transactions. But at the same time, when I intersected out of Treasury, we were taking the organization to another level too in terms of bolstering our finance organization, and there wasn't a snowball's chance I could do both roles, just in terms of time and team and commitment.
Good, thank you.
Sure.
One of your other sort of unique situations is you've just gone through a situation where, as the IRO, you've changed CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, had change of human resources, change of strategy.
Yeah.
I think you told me the CFO is the only person that's left in the C-suite.
Yeah.
How does that affect you from IR, where you have to rebuild that relationship internally and establish, sort of reestablish yourself?
It's phenomenally difficult, but phenomenally exciting, and a lot of opportunities too. So it's trying to find the balance. It's what is critical is relationships. What is critical, as we heard in the CFO panel here this morning, and what's important to them is balanced in terms of opinion, consistency of messaging, really important, but also healthy debate. I think some IROs are a little hesitant to challenge their executive management team, and it's not an easy thing to do. So how do you partner internally? How do you find advocates internally to help you on important topics that you feel you need to be influenced? When we have 6 new executive management folks in the company less than 6 months, they don't necessarily understand your policies, the regulatory environment, or anything like that. So a lot of it is education. And through that education, you can really help influence. And then obviously what's critical is this, having a seat at the table and a voice, and that's through your relationships, and it's through this challenging, but also funneling what the external perceptions are about the company, and how can you help your executive management team to meld and deliver the message externally but also internally is really critical. And then the consistency, though, you have as your board of directors. So it's how you help them to engage with you as well as that consistent umbrella as you guide and lead and learn these executives to grow in the organization.
Well, and thank you. You're unique in that, not unique, but you're where everybody wants to be, in that you have a great relationship with your board.
Yeah.
And you really have that seat at the table, you have that dialogue with the board.
Yeah.
Part of the audience that watches this are IR professionals, others part is board members and others. So I guess in ending, what kind of message do you have for boards out there to get the most value, and the C-suite to get the most value out of the IR area?
Yeah, I'd really encourage anybody tuning in to really embrace and ensure that your IRO is empowered. I think we all default to believing they are empowered, but are you actually utilizing their expertise? Are you averse to receiving feedback directly from your IRO? Do you need a third-party neutral perception study to provide something that your IRO has known for the last 6 months anyway? So why not engage directly with them? The chairman of our board actually participated in this conference 2 years ago, and he has not stopped talking about the phenomenal experience he has had, and he's used a lot of his engagement at this very conference in his board discussions, and he continues to bring it up. He'd come back in a heartbeat. So I think what NIRI has done this year to grow the conference into other areas whereby you can also have some investor meetings around this, which will hopefully encourage any of the executive management suite or even board executives to come to this conference. It's not a lot of your time, it's not a big commitment. Engage with the depth and breadth of people participating here, because there's just so much to learn. And it's really benefited my board, and I look forward to the opportunity of bringing either my CEO or CFO next year to participate in meetings, and when they have time between meetings to engage in this forum. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ruth. We're out of time.
Oh, okay.
I want to thank you all for joining us for today's IR Today, and I also want to thank corporate board member for all their support of this program,
Yes.
and we look forward to joining you on the next IR Today.
Join us again next time for IR Today, brought to you by the National Investor Relations Institute, dedicated to advancing global investor relations practices, and Knowledge Partner host, corporate board member.